Hey everyone, my name is Devin Domingo. Welcome to our session on enabling zero-touch IT in SaaS management platforms with Jamf. We know everyone here is to learn the ins and outs of how to increase their efficiency as an IT professional, especially when it comes to automating and simplifying the mundane, and recoup their time and costs when it comes to day-to-day operations. So why not learn a little bit more about how the world of SaaS operations and device management with Jamf collide, and how knowing about this intersection could help make you more efficient with a SaaS management platform like BetterCloud today. My name is Devin Domingo, and I'm a product manager here at BetterCloud, which is the G2 and Gartner recognized industry-leading SaaS management platform for IT professionals. I am a former SaaS operations technical consultant, a service desk manager, an IT admin, and even a former Apple genius. And I really would not be here in the field today if it weren't for my Genius Bar days. I'm also here and excited to present with my partner in crime, Brian.
Hi, thanks, Devin. I am BetterCloud's senior IT manager, so I oversee the team that provides support for all of the BetterClouders with everything that they need help with and from a technology standpoint. And my team also oversees usage of BetterCloud and administers all of the various SaaS apps that we use here. I've been in IT for over a decade. I've worked in IT help desk roles previously, as well as I'm also an former Apple Genius alum here like Devin.
Awesome. So at BetterCloud, whenever we learn one of our colleagues needs software to help them with their new job, our first place to look is to acquiring a new SaaS tool. It's easy to deploy and access. It works well with your SSO. It's accessible remotely. The infrastructure and the patching is managed by the vendor, and colleagues love having best-in-breed tools in the cloud. Looking backwards, the average number of SaaS applications enterprise was managing in 2015 was somewhere around 12 applications. But based on data we've collected, we found this trend has exploded. And in 2020, the average enterprise is managing around 80 SaaS applications. We could definitely say that SaaS truly is the future of enterprise software. However, as organizations embrace more SaaS, there are more challenges evolving underneath the surface. As your SaaS stack grows, so does your management and security challenges. Your staff isn't necessarily growing relative to the number of new SaaS platforms, and the technologies you're being asked to support is just steadily increasing. Even prior to the global pandemic, many industry professionals reported in their State of SaaS Ops report that nearly 6% of their org staffing has changed down to 4%. And many of the IT professionals out there, they're under at least one compliance standard, whether it be SOC or SOX, HIPAA, GDPR, CCPA, GLBA, SEC, and there's many more out there that are going to require you to have controls that help you protect your employee and customer data across your tech stack in order to prevent a costly data breach. Irrespective of industry or size, according to the Ponemon Institute in partnership with IPM, the report released last year reported that the cost of a data breach, the average company will spend somewhere around $4.2 million in legal fees, and they could maybe save about $1.25 million of that should they demonstrate that they actually have security controls in place that remediate and actually solve for some of these potential breaches ahead of time. So with the growing number of SaaS vendors hosting employee data and user accounts and file assets, you're going to need automation and visibility to help manage, secure, and discover that SaaS sprawl that's occurring in your environment. Even just think about all the efficiencies you've gained through Jamf as it comes to your device management and your software deployment. You have created automations that ensure your new hires have a great experience on day one with deployment scripts, automated account creation, and SSO. You've enhanced security when it comes to Jamf, with the ability to lock and erase stolen and ex-employee devices. But when it comes to your SaaS, you need to find a way to automate that onboarding, that offboarding, and a lot of these security workflows. This is where BetterCloud is going to come to the rescue. As I mentioned earlier, BetterCloud is the G2 and Gartner industry-leading SaaS management platform, and it supports three major use cases: SaaS application discovery and management, so that way when your users install their own SaaS applications, and you need the controls to manage and secure those risky user OAuths, that's one solution we offer. The second is around SaaS user management, which helps with the understanding of the creating, the changing of roles, the managing of those distribution lists, and those employee assets, specifically during their user lifecycle, during things like onboarding, offboarding, and their role changes. And of course, we were also able to integrate with Jamf as one of those integrations. And lastly, we also support file and sensitive data exposure identification, remediation, and automation. So that way you can ensure that your organization's most important data is not accidentally leaked to the public. We want to be your toolkit for handling all of your SaaS operations via automated insights, event detection, and remediation actions. In the past year, we at BetterCloud have been automating user lifecycle management processes for organizations of many sizes and industries. This includes the joiner process for all of your new employees who want to have a great day one experience, turning on their devices and getting access to all the applications that they need. The average employee onboarding, beyond using an SSO or an IDP tool, and beyond those automations that are already creating those accounts, they on average require an additional 3 steps per integration. So let's put that example to a use case, right? So let's say you have an identity provider like an Okta or OneLogin, right? And let's say it's creating something like a Google user. You still need additional onboarding steps, such as adding them to different distributions or OUs. Maybe you need to assign them a specific license type. Maybe you need to then also notify their manager or the HR department that you've actually completed a lot of their onboarding tasks, and then they're how to relay some of that credential information off to the new employee. With their biggest customers, we've seen these 3 steps occur even up to somewhere around 54 possible integrations. So if you do the math, we've seen some onboarding workflows span somewhere around 162 automated steps. Think about how those 162 different automated steps span across your help desk today, where they're doing multiple clicks for account creation and edits and entitlements. You could save that many hours of your help desk just by creating BetterCloud onboarding workflows. So this automation problem gets even bigger when you're discussing the heavily manual task of offboarding and your levers in the organization. Your identity provider may be disabling accounts at the time of suspension. What are you doing after that suspension? Are you doing your account deletions? Are you transferring their assets? Are you enabling those out of office messages and those delegations in an automated fashion? And it's also very likely that your leaver also acquired more SaaS applications during their life cycle. So are you remembering to automatically turn off those accounts and do those same processes? You'll notice that your onboarding checklist is not as easily reversible as you thought it was. When we look at the average BetterCloud customer, they have some actions like these transfers, these deletions of accounts, these 90-day wait periods after suspension. And also doing things like via Jamf, like disabling their computers and locking them out. We've seen them take up to 11 additional steps per integration sometimes during their offboarding. And when you compare that to the 71 different SaaS integrations that we've seen our biggest customers use, we've seen some offboarding workflows in some of our largest customers span 781 automated steps. Obviously, this is going to translate to so much help desk time saving that you're going to need to come up with a unified strategy between your onboarding and your offboarding and join together some automations between your device management and your SaaS management practices. And for our current customers, they're seeing efficiency and security gains immediately. Click times in their SaaS admin consoles are being heavily reduced, and some are reporting up to 18 times of the time savings that what they've seen before using something like BetterCloud. For user lifecycle and file exposure management, Help Desk is getting 2 times the time savings on those Help Desk tickets. And it's very clear that BetterCloud is greatly improving the lives of your Help Desk by saving them from the more menial aspects of doing their SaaS discovery, management, and security, and then just have to take on more time to do those more aspirational and directional projects that you want to get to. And with that, I'd love to hand it over to Brian, who will be discussing how BetterCloud has been using BetterCloud in partnership with Jamf in order to get him and his team closer to a zero-touch IT operation.
Thanks, Devin. Yeah, my team, as Devin mentioned, oversees all IT-related aspects of on and offboarding. And our goal has always been to enable our people team to drive that employee lifecycle process, including onboarding, changes within the org, and offboarding, all doing this while enabling the organization to scale and reducing the number of touches that the IT team actually has to take and do manually ourselves. Now, so how do you actually do that? The answer is, I know how to do it, but I don't really know how to do it until you start going through here. And with BetterCloud and Jamf together, you can actually take these actions. So the key to a successful zero-touch IT model actually requires sort of three components here. On the device side, we have Jamf, including Jamf Pro and Jamf Connect, managing the device and the hardware itself. We have an identity piece through our identity provider, and this can be anyone from OneLogin to Okta to Azure to Google, et cetera, controlling the identity of the user and the identity of the user on the device in partnership with Jamf Connect. And then we have that third piece of BetterCloud and how to manage the SaaS applications that the user has access to, that the user needs, how to manage their documents in a secure way. We've been working on actually doing automated device distribution. So if I had to add a fourth one in here, I would say the fourth one would be working with your reseller to get devices provisioned and sent out to your users automatically. Now, we're actually in the process of doing that. And when those computers come to our users, they're fully ready to go. The user opens them up, unboxes them, they get the joy of unboxing experience, and they can set up the computer with their identity that comes automatically from our identity provider. And then when they log in and then when they open up their browser and sign in, they have access to all the applications they need on day one, and hopefully with very few additional asks beyond that. Now, just to give you a little bit of a look at how BetterCloud operates at BetterCloud, we actually have 134 different workflows running currently. And those 134 different workflows go across the board from user lifecycle management, that is onboarding, changes within the organization. So somebody may be getting a promotion or moving to a different team, offboarding, and as well as additional workflows related to data loss management or data loss protection, security, and a lot of alerting. We tie in BetterCloud in our own instance with 35 different SaaS applications. That's a lot of things that we automate through workflows. And in the past quarter, we've had over 2,700 instances of our workflows running. So those workflows run in an automatic way every time somebody joins the organization, every time somebody moves within it, every time somebody leaves. And we also have a lot of those workflow instances that run because of responding to things like a user has shared a file publicly, and we want to make sure that that file is supposed to be shared publicly and take remediative steps where necessary. Lost my clicker. There we go. And so I wanted to give you a little example of kind of how we think of onboarding and how we handle onboarding workflows at BetterCloud. So it's not just one big monolithic piece that runs that grants everybody the same level of access. What you really need for a zero-touch automated strategy is granular, sort of nimble workflows that give access to exactly the things that somebody needs based on who they are and what they do. So in this case, if we were to look at somebody who was hired in our marketing team in Atlanta, there's actually at least 3 different workflows that run. So we have a new user workflow that runs for all full-time employees in the company. And that includes things like adding people to company distribution groups, company event calendars, giving them Zoom access at least at a basic license, and granting them access to different Slack channels and adding them to different Slack groups. Now, if this marketing user, or if this user is also in marketing, we want to run a specific workflow related to marketing. So we wait a little bit and then we add them to their marketing groups. We add them to a shared marketing calendar. We may actually grant them a full Zoom license as opposed to just the basic one. So that's taking more advanced actions within a specific SaaS application. And then we may add them to some additional Slack channels. Now, on top of that, too, we have yet another workflow that runs because that person's location attribute in the identity provider says that they're in Atlanta. And so we also add them to things like our Atlanta group, where lots of different delicious Southern foods are discussed. I'm not from the South, so I'm missing out, unfortunately. But we also add them to an Atlanta calendar. We add them to an Atlanta channel. We add them to different product and discussion groups based on like the types of roles that are in there. And so you kind of get this picture of when workflows run, they're not just like one monolithic thing. You're talking about sort of layers of the onion and granting them more and more progressive access to these things. The same is true with offboarding. You don't have to just run one single offboarding workflow. You can have that workflow broken down into a number of different steps. Now, how do you actually automate this? What is the thing that makes this possible? Well, so far, we've been able to automate it based on a lot of things, like we can trigger workflows from either a Google organizational unit or group movement. So that is state changes in the user, either coming from the identity provider. So they're added or removed from a group, they change an org unit, that type of thing. We can also do it when users are created or disabled, and then give some conditioning around that as well. The most recent way that we can initiate these workflows is actually through custom triggers. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say zero-touch IT automation, because what this is doing is putting the control of when that workflow runs into the hands of the stakeholders who are responsible for making sure that people get onboarded within your org. And that is to say, it's typically your people or HR team. How you do this is up to you, but there's a number of different ways. You can have your HR team fill out Zendesk forms. You can have them fill out Jira forms. You can have them fill out Google Forms. Anything that can basically send a webhook into BetterCloud then can initiate these workflows. Now, besides the automated way, we also have the ability to run workflows on demand. That is something, maybe you need to just run a specific action against a group of users in bulk. So you can just go into BetterCloud, select those users, and run a workflow. Or in the case of some things like perhaps there's a time-sensitive offboarding, you may want to have more granular control over exactly when that workflow runs. Now, this is an example of an offboarding workflow. So the workflow does a whole lot of stuff. And that stuff is not only do we revoke access, so we revoke access and we start with the identity provider, but we revoke access to all of the various different SaaS applications that your user had while they worked there. But we go deeper than that. So we actually reclaim licenses from some of those SaaS applications. Your team, your IT team probably spends a lot of time not only revoking the access for your users, but then going back in and every quarter, every 6 months, every year, whatever, auditing licenses that are being used by these applications. That's pretty costly, and both in terms of the time that your team spends doing it and the waste of using a license that's sitting unused for a person who's left your organization. That license could be reassigned. So we actually go back and automatically, as part of that process, unassign those licenses, maybe transfer them to somebody else, put them back in the pool, whatever. We also now, this is JNUC, so I would be remiss if I didn't talk about how great we were able to work with Jamf actions. We lock laptops as a part of our offboarding workflow. So when the offboarding workflow runs, we send a Jamf command to lock that laptop. And then we do a whole lot of other things, which include like transfer of documents. So transfer Drive files, transfer Zoom recordings, transfer Dropbox files. Automatically, we transfer those things to the user's manager or to an executor on their account. And then we can also provide notifications along the way of the success or failure of those actions, and kind of like even just a status check of like, hey, we're at this point in the process. You should have started to receive, all of the user's Google Drive documents. Now, I wanted to highlight the actual Jamf actions that we have here. So there's quite a few of them beyond just locking the user's laptop. Another one that's really important to us as the IT team is to unlock user accounts. Silly users forgetting their passwords, we're working from home. Cats and toddlers jump on keyboards all the time. So it's not that uncommon that people get locked out of their computers. And we actually can use one in action from BetterCloud to unlock that computer automatically without having to go into Jamf or go into a separate application to take those actions. Now, if you have a BetterCloud API, you're actually able to build custom actions as well. And so you can extend the functionality that you see here and use any of the other available Jamf actions that have an API endpoint. So thank you very much for listening to our talk.
Yes, thanks for coming. We really appreciate your time and learning how to get you closer to zero touch IT operations with SaaS management and device management combined. Please come by the BetterCloud booth right after this presentation. We have a raffle you definitely don't want to miss, and we will see you then.